Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to unlock some secrets of personal relationships and attraction.
Ooh, sounds exciting.
Yeah, it should be fun. And we've got two presentations to kind of guide our discussion.
Okay.
One is specifically on relationships and attraction,
Right.
and the other is on social perception.
Interesting.
So get ready for some aha moments because we're going to be uncovering all sorts of interesting things like why you might be missing out on some amazing friendships, how first impressions can create those lasting halos or even horns,
Yeah.
and why you might keep falling for the same type of person.
I feel like we've all been there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the direction we're going to be going in today.
I'm excited.
What I thought was really fascinating is we're often unaware of the forces that shape our connections.
Right.
It's like these invisible strings are kind of pulling us towards certain people and pushing us away from others.
Definitely. We don't even realize it half the time.
No, we don't.
Thanks.
Now, I know we all have a basic understanding of different relationship types, friendships, romantic relationships, family, work.
Of course.
But what I found really interesting in the first presentation was this concept of proximity bias.
Yeah, proximity bias. That one's a big one.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about what that is.
So proximity bias is basically the idea that we're simply more likely to befriend people who are physically close to us.
Okay.
Which makes sense, right? You see someone every day, you're more likely to talk to them.
Yeah.
But the implications of that are pretty huge because it means that your entire social circle is pretty much dictated by your daily routines.
Oh, wow.
So the people you happen to encounter on a regular basis.
So you're saying I could be missing out on incredible friendships just because I haven't ventured outside my usual coffee shop or office.
Potentially, yeah. You're more likely to strike up a conversation with someone that you see every day at the gym than someone you pass once a year at a conference, you know?
Okay.
It's just that proximity bias in action.
It's silently shaping your social landscape.
Exactly.
Wow, that's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, it is.
It makes you wonder how many potential connections we're missing out on simply because of physical distance.
Right, right.
But attraction, I mean, it's got to go beyond just proximity, right? There's got to be more to it than just bumping into someone at the grocery store every week.
Oh, for sure. For sure. We're also really drawn to people who complement our needs and personalities.
Okay.
So it's this idea that our strengths and our weaknesses can kind of balance each other out,
Uh-huh.
and that can create a more fulfilling dynamic.
So it's not necessarily about finding someone who's exactly like us,
No,
but rather someone who brings different skills and perspectives to the table.
totally. Like if you think about it like building a team,
Okay.
you wouldn't want everyone on the team to have the same strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
You want those different perspectives to round things out.
It creates a more balanced team,
Exactly.
more resilient. I
Exactly.
love that analogy. It makes perfect sense. But, when we talk about attraction,
Yeah.
we're talking about so many different types of attraction,
Yeah.
right? It's not just about physical attraction,
Right.
although I'm sure that's what most people think of first.
Yeah, probably.
But the presentation highlighted several different types of attraction: physical, emotional, intellectual, social, even sexual.
And all of those can exist in different combinations,
Yeah.
creating kind of a unique recipe for each relationship.
So, okay, let's kind of break those down a bit. Physical attraction.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty straightforward. It's that initial spark based on appearance.
Right.
But then there's emotional attraction.
Yes.
That's more about feeling a deep connection with someone and like really understanding them.
And feeling understood.
Yes.
That's a big one, too.
Feeling seen.
Yeah, like you can truly be yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Powerful stuff.
For sure.
And then there's intellectual attraction. I mean, I've always been fascinated by people who can make me see the world in a new way. People who challenge my assumptions
Yeah.
and like spark those aha moments.
They can be so stimulating.
It can be. I mean, those late night conversations that you're just like
Yes.
energized and inspired.
Totally.
And then there's social attraction. Someone with great social skills.
Right.
They make you feel comfortable, at ease.
Like you can be yourself around them.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
And we can't forget sexual attraction. I mean, that's a powerful force.
It is.
It can drive us towards certain people.
Yes.
And really ignite a passionate connection.
For sure.
Okay, so we've got this whole spectrum of attraction, all these different flavors blending together to create the unique taste of each relationship.
I like that, the taste.
But what I'm really curious about is, why are we attracted to certain people in the first place?
Right.
I mean, is it just random chance?
Right.
Or is there some kind of rhyme or reason to it all?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting because researchers have actually come up with a lot of different theories to try and explain this.
Okay.
There are some that look at attraction from an evolutionary perspective, which suggests that we're kind of instinctively drawn to people who would help us pass on our genes.
Survival of the fittest, playing out in the dating world.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So think about, how we might be unconsciously drawn to certain physical features,
Uh-huh.
maybe that indicate health and vitality.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then there's the sociocultural perspective,
Oh.
which emphasizes the influence of social norms
Mm-hmm.
and our cultural values on our preferences.
Right.
So think about how beauty standards and relationship expectations vary across different cultures.
That's a good point.
Hugely, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that attraction isn't always purely instinctual.
Right.
It's also shaped by the messages we receive from society about what's considered desirable or attractive.
But what about those cases where we just can't explain why we're attracted to someone? It's like there's this unexplainable chemistry
Right.
that draws us in.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so is there any explanation for that?
Well, that's where learning theory comes into play,
Okay.
which suggests that attraction can actually be learned through association and reinforcement.
Okay.
So maybe you're drawn to certain personality traits because they remind you of positive experiences from your past.
Interesting. So our brains are making these subconscious connections,
Right.
linking certain qualities with like feelings of happiness and security.
Exactly.
And we don't even realize it's happening.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then we also have the cognitive perspective, which
Okay.
focuses on how our thoughts, beliefs, and expectations influence who we find attractive.
Right.
So if you value kindness and intelligence in a partner, you're more likely to be drawn to people who exhibit those traits.
Our minds are actively filtering potential partners
It's like a checklist.
based on our internal checklist.
Yeah.
We're subconsciously searching for that soulmate
Yeah, in a way.
that aligns with our vision.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And then we also can't forget about the biological perspective, which highlights the role of hormones and neurotransmitters.
You mean those love chemicals we hear so much about?
Exactly.
Dopamine, oxytocin,
All of them.
that play a role in creating those feelings of pleasure and bonding
Absolutely.
and attraction.
It's fascinating. It's like this dance between nature and nurture.
It really is. It's so
Yes.
fascinating. It's like we're peeling back the layers of the onion to understand this complex recipe of attraction.
I love that.
But what about love itself?
Hmm.
Is there a scientific way to define this, like, elusive emotion?
Well, the triangular theory of love offers a framework for understanding it.
Okay.
And it suggests that love is composed of three core elements: passion, intimacy, and commitment.
Okay, so break those down for me. Like, what exactly do those elements look like in a relationship?
So passion is that intense romantic feeling.
Okay.
It's that spark that ignites the relationship, the butterflies in your stomach,
Yes.
that emotional and physical connection.
Got it.
It just makes you feel so alive.
Right.
Excited to be with your partner.
Okay, so what about intimacy?
Intimacy is more about that emotional closeness.
Okay.
It's that deep sense of connection and understanding.
Feeling safe and vulnerable.
Exactly.
Being able to share your thoughts and feelings
Yes,
without fear of judgment.
exactly.
Powerful.
It is. And then commitment is that conscious decision to maintain and nurture the relationship for the long haul.
So it's that promise to stick together
Exactly.
through good times and bad.
Yep. The ups and downs
Okay.
and different combinations of these three elements, passion, intimacy, and commitment, create different types of love.
Interesting.
Consummate love, which many consider to be like the ideal type of love,
Uh-huh.
encompasses all three.
So it's like that ultimate goal.
Yeah, the trifecta.
Right.
Mm.
But I imagine it takes a lot of work
Oh, absolutely.
and dedication to maintain that balance over time.
It's a journey. Yeah,
To
it
be
is.
sure.
Relationships ebb and flow, so maintaining that balance can be tricky.
be. Yeah. But understanding those components
Right.
can really help us better navigate those complexities of love.
For sure.
And speaking of navigating complexities, the next section of the presentation delved into attachment styles,
Yes.
which I've always found fascinating
A fascinating topic.
because I've heard they can have a huge impact on how we approach relationships as adults.
They really do. It's incredible how our early childhood experiences, particularly our relationships with our caregivers,
Right.
really shape our expectations and behaviors in romantic relationships as adults.
So our childhoods are like the blueprints for our adult relationships.
It's a great way to put it
Yeah.
because those patterns form what we call attachment styles.
Okay.
And understanding our own attachment style can be incredibly helpful in navigating those patterns
Uh-huh.
and building healthier and more fulfilling relationships.
Okay, so let's dive into those attachment styles.
Okay.
What are the main ones? How do they play out in romantic relationships?
So there are 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious preoccupied, dismissive avoidant, and fearful avoidant.
Okay, wow, that's quite a range.
It is.
Which one is considered the healthiest?
So secure attachment is the one that's generally associated with greater relationship satisfaction and stability.
Which makes sense.
Yeah,
You feel secure, you feel trusting,
right.
you're less likely to have those anxieties and insecurities that
Right,
can
so-
create
so-
conflict.
Exactly. Secure individuals are comfortable with intimacy, they're good at communicating their needs, and they're able to provide support to their partners.
Yeah.
They create a really lovely foundation of trust and safety in a relationship.
But what about the other attachment styles? How do they impact relationships?
So anxious, preoccupied individuals, they often crave intimacy,
Yeah, okay.
but they also worry about their partner's availability and responsiveness.
Okay.
They might seek constant reassurance, become clingy,
Right.
or they might overreact to perceived threats in the relationship.
So that sounds emotionally exhausting
It can be, yeah.
for both partners.
Yeah, for sure. And then we have those with a dismissive avoidant attachment style.
Oh.
And they might kind of downplay the importance of relationships. They might struggle with emotional expression or withdraw from intimacy when things get too close for comfort.
So they're pushing their partner away,
Yeah, it can feel that way.
even if they don't mean to.
Right, exactly. They prioritize independence and self-reliance,
Got it.
which can make it difficult to truly connect on a deeper level.
Okay, so what's the last one?
So the last one is fearful avoidant attachment,
Okay.
which is kind of a combination of a desire for intimacy, but also a fear of getting hurt or rejected.
So they're wanting closeness, but also fearing vulnerability.
Totally.
A push and pull.
Yeah, they might send mixed signals,
Yeah.
create confusion and frustration in the relationship.
So it's like they're battling those internal demons,
It can feel that way.
wanting that connection, but afraid to get hurt.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these patterns from our past
I know.
can have such a powerful influence on our present relationships.
It really highlights how important it is to understand our own attachment style
Uh-huh.
and how it might be impacting our interactions with others.
It's like holding up a mirror to your own relationship patterns.
Yeah, and gaining that self-awareness.
Right, so you can create more conscious and fulfilling connections.
Exactly.
But the good news is,
Yes,
attachment styles aren't set in stone.
they're not.
With awareness and effort,
Right.
we can shift towards those more secure patterns of relating. So it's not all doom and gloom if you realize
No, not at all.
you have one of those insecure attachment styles.
Nope.
That's reassuring to hear.
It is.
Self-awareness is the first step towards creating that positive change.
Absolutely.
Now, the presentation also touched on John Allen Lee's Love Styles Inventory,
Oh, yes.
which categorizes different approaches to love.
It's a fascinating inventory.
It is. It makes you think that there are different ways of loving and expressing love.
Absolutely. So Lee actually identified 6 distinct love styles.
Yeah.
Eros, ludus, storge, pragma, mania, and agape.
Okay, give me a crash course in love styles.
Okay, so we'll start with Eros.
Okay.
That's the passionate, intense, romantic love.
Okay, like Romeo and Juliet.
Exactly.
That whirlwind,
Yeah.
all-consuming.
Yes. A strong physical and emotional connection.
Okay, what about Ludus?
Ludus is that playful, carefree approach to love.
Oh, so it's more about the fun than the commitment.
Exactly. It's
funny.
about enjoying the moment.
Okay, got it.
Now, storge is all about that companionate love
Okay.
that grows out of friendship and shared interests.
Okay.
It's slow burning,
Okay.
comfortable,
Okay.
built on trust and familiarity.
Like that warm and cozy feeling.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Now, pragma is the practical and realistic approach to love.
Okay.
It emphasizes compatibility, shared goals, long-term stability.
So it's more about building a life together.
Exactly.
That
right.
partnership grounded in those shared values.
Ah.
And a vision for the future.
Totally.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So what are the last two?
So we have mania,
Okay.
which is characterized by possessiveness, jealousy, and a constant need for reassurance.
Ooh, that sounds a little,
It can be unhealthy.
yeah,
It often stems from insecurity,
right.
fear of abandonment.
Yeah.
It can create a lot of drama in a relationship.
Okay, so it's about that need for constant validation.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And lastly, we have agape,
Okay.
which is that selfless and unconditional love.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It is.
Putting your partner's needs before your own.
Exactly.
Wow.
And while agape is often considered an ideal,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that all love styles have their own strengths and weaknesses.
So it's about finding what works for you
Exactly.
and your partner.
Right.
Okay, got it.
It's fascinating to think about which love style describes us best.
Yeah,
And it makes you wonder if people can actually change their love style over time.
that's a good question. It is possible
Okay.
with self-awareness and effort.
Uh-huh.
We can kind of shift towards healthier and more fulfilling love styles.
It's not like we're stuck in one forever.
Nope, not at all.
Good to know.
Yeah, relationships are about growth and evolution.
Absolutely.
And our love styles can evolve right along with us.
That's reassuring,
Yeah.
no matter what your love style is.
Right.
Effective communication seems to be the key ingredient
It's essential.
for a successful relationship, right?
Absolutely. It's like the oxygen
Right.
that keeps the relationship alive.
So what are some of those key elements of effective communication in a relationship?
So first and foremost, it's about being able to express your thoughts and feelings clearly and respectfully,
Okay.
even when it's tough.
Yeah.
Creating that safe space where both partners feel safe to share their vulnerabilities.
So no more bottling things up
Exactly.
or expecting our partners to read our minds.
No mind reading aloud.
Right.
It's also really important to be a good listener.
Okay.
Truly hear and understand your partner's perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
Even if you don't.
Right.
Putting yourself in their shoes, seeing the world from their point of view.
Empathy is key.
It is. It's also about paying attention to nonverbal cues.
Right.
Body language, tone of voice, facial expression.
Right, because those can convey so much more.
They do way more than words sometimes.
It's like you become a detective in the relationship.
Yeah, totally.
Deciphering those signals.
It's true.
And then finally, conflict resolution skills are super important
Absolutely.
because disagreements are inevitable.
They are. In any relationship.
It's how we handle them
Right.
that determines the health of the relationship.
It's about finding that win-win.
Yeah.
So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether,
No.
but learning how to navigate those disagreements in a healthy way.
Being a skilled negotiator.
Yes.
Finding that middle ground.
Yes.
Okay, so communication is a process.
It is.
It takes practice.
Lots of practice.
Patience, a willingness to learn.
Yep, and grow together.
This has been such an insightful exploration of communication.
It has.
It's like Relationship 101.
I like it.
Now let's shift gears
Okay.
and explore the second presentation,
Okay.
which delves into the fascinating world of social perception.
Okay, let's do it.
So, what is social perception?
Mm-hmm.
And why is it so important in our relationships?
So social perception is just the process of how we form impressions and make judgments about other people.
Okay.
And it's a constant process.
Right.
It happens every time we meet someone new or even interact with someone we already know.
So our brains are constantly creating these mental snapshots
Yeah.
of the people around us, trying to make sense of their behavior and motivations.
We're gathering information,
Right.
trying to form an opinion about them.
But don't our own biases
Absolutely.
and assumptions
Yes.
really influence those judgments?
Absolutely. Our perceptions aren't always objective.
Right.
They're shaped by our past experiences, our cultural background, even our mood in the moment.
It's like we're looking at the world through tinted lenses.
A great analogy.
And those lenses can sometimes distort our view of reality.
Exactly.
So why is it so crucial to be aware of those biases
Oh, absolutely.
and to try to strive for greater objectivity?
Because if we're not aware of them, they're going to be controlling us.
Right.
We're going to be making judgments and decisions based on these biases that we don't even know we have.
Right. It's like those hidden puppeteers
Right.
pulling the strings of our perceptions.
It's a good way to put it.
Okay, well, I can already see how this is going to get really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
We're about to uncover those hidden biases that might be shaping our relationships
Exactly.
without us even realizing it.
So get ready for some more aha moments.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's dive into those perceptual biases
Okay.
and see how they play out in our everyday interactions.
So one of the most well-known biases is the fundamental attribution error.
Okay?
This is our tendency to overemphasize internal factors.
Like someone's personality.
Okay. And underestimate external factors.
Like the situation
Exactly.
when we're explaining other people's behavior.
Right. So like if someone cuts us off in traffic,
Yeah.
we're more likely to think they're just a jerk
Right.
rather than thinking maybe they're rushing to the hospital or something.
Oh, that's a good point.
We just automatically assume it's their character
Right.
when it could be so many other things.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the self-serving bias.
Oh, yeah, the one where we're always right.
Well, we like to think so.
Right.
This is our tendency to take credit for our successes
Right.
and blame our failures on external circumstances.
So if we ace a presentation at work,
Yeah,
it's because we're brilliant and talented.
right.
But if we bomb it, it's because the technology failed us.
Exactly.
Right. It's like we've got these rose-colored glasses for ourselves.
Yeah.
And then these like really dark sunglasses
Yes.
for everyone else.
Totally.
And that can create problems
Oh, it can.
because it prevents us from taking responsibility for our actions
Absolutely.
and from really learning from our mistakes.
It's a classic double standard.
Okay, so fundamental attribution error,
Yes.
self-serving bias.
Mhm.
What other perceptual pitfalls do we need to watch out for?
So we've also got the halo effect.
The halo effect of
This is where we tend to form an overall positive impression of someone
Okay.
based on one single positive trait.
So if they're really attractive, we might assume.
Yeah, we might assume they're also intelligent, kind, trustworthy,
Right.
all these other great things.
Okay, based on that one little thing.
Exactly.
And then there's the horns effect, which is the opposite, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So a negative first impression
Yeah. Can really taint our view.
colors everything else we see about them
It does.
in a negative light.
Yeah, like we're putting on those dark sunglasses again,
Really?
filtering out all the good and amplifying the bad.
First impressions are powerful.
They really are.
It can be a little scary
It is.
because you realize how much those initial
Yeah, that split second.
interactions can color your whole perception.
Totally. Even when they're based on such limited information.
So don't judge a book by its cover.
Exactly.
But even if we try to be objective,
Right.
our brains are still kind of playing tricks on us.
Absolutely. We've got those biases.
What about that confirmation bias we hear so much about?
Oh, yeah. Confirmation bias is a tricky one.
Tell me about it.
It's our tendency to seek out information that confirms what we already believe
Right.
and ignore or downplay information that contradicts it.
So we're basically cherry picking the evidence,
We are.
right, to support our existing perspective.
We like to be right.
Yeah.
And it can really prevent us from growing and learning.
Right.
Because it prevents us from seeing things from other perspectives.
We get stuck in those echo chambers
Right.
where everyone agrees with us.
And it can be a problem on social media, too.
Right.
Because you can curate your feed.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
you're only seeing things
that confirm your views.
that agree with you. Yeah.
Okay, so confirmation bias.
Definitely one to watch out for.
Is there a bias that's like the opposite of confirmation bias?
Ooh, good question.
Something that really highlights the power of our expectations.
You're thinking of the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Ah, the self-fulfilling prophecy.
So this is when our expectations about someone
Okay,
actually
wow.
influence their behavior.
Wow.
So if we believe someone is going to fail,
Mm-hmm.
we might unknowingly treat them in a way that makes them more likely to fail,
Oh, wow.
right? Our expectations can shape reality.
That's powerful.
It
A
is.
little scary.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a good reminder to try to be mindful of our expectations.
Right.
Treat people fairly with respect.
Regardless of our preconceived notions.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about first impressions, biases.
Hmm.
What about the order in which we receive information? Does that matter?
Oh, it absolutely does.
Okay.
We've got the primacy effect,
Primacy effect.
which states that people tend to remember the first information they receive about someone better than later information.
So those first few minutes of meeting someone.
Huge.
Yeah.
They can have such a big impact on our overall impression.
It's like the first few notes of a song
It is.
that set the tone.
Exactly.
The whole piece.
That initial information really creates a framework
Uh-huh.
for how we interpret everything that follows.
Okay, so how do we avoid being swayed by the primacy effect? Is it even possible?
It's really tough, but being aware of it is the first step.
Okay.
We need to make a conscious effort to consider all the information, not just those first impressions.
Right, be open-minded.
Exactly. Give people a fair chance.
Yeah.
Don't let those early interactions color our entire perception of them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But there's another bias.
There's always another one.
Right.
Yeah.
That's related to how we see ourselves versus others.
You're thinking of the actor-observer bias?
Yes, actor-observer bias.
Which is the tendency to attribute our actions to external causes
Right.
and others' actions to internal causes.
The classic double standard.
It is.
Right. Can you give me an example?
Sure. So if we're late for work, it's because of traffic, a flat tire,
Right.
something totally out of our control.
Right.
But if someone else is late, it's because they're lazy.
Oh, they don't care.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
We give ourselves the benefit of the doubt.
We do.
Hold everyone else accountable.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And this can lead to misunderstandings.
Yeah, of course.
Especially in relationships.
Yeah. It's a reminder to practice empathy.
Yes.
Try to understand that other person's perspective.
Absolutely.
Okay, so first impressions, biases, the order in which we receive information.
Mm-hmm.
What other perceptual quirks do we need to watch out for?
Okay, so there's also the contrast effect.
Contrast effect.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of relationships and social perception.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
So before we move on, I want to circle back to the second presentation.
Okay.
The one that was focused on social perception.
Right.
There was this one slide I found really intriguing.
Oh, yeah.
It was titled, "Let's Discuss Social Perception."
I remember that one.
Yeah, and it just posed some really thought-provoking questions
Yeah.
that I'd love to kind of explore with you.
Yeah, happy to.
So the first question asks, how does social perception affect our daily interactions with others?
Right.
I mean, it seems like it's kind of woven into every social encounter.
It is.
Right? From a quick chat with the barista
Yeah.
to a job interview to
Yeah.
a first date.
It's constantly shaping our interactions.
So-
From the moment we meet someone, our brain is processing information about them, forming impressions, making judgments.
And we're not even aware of it.
Often not, no.
Like we're subconsciously categorizing people
Yeah,
and predicting their behavior.
right, based on those snap judgments.
So the next question is a little bit more personal.
Okay.
It asks, can you think of an example of when you made a snap judgment based on someone's appearance?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Have you ever done that?
I think we've all been there at some point. We're
Yeah.
visual creatures.
Right.
And we tend to make those quick assessments based on what we see.
Right, okay.
But those initial judgments can be so misleading.
Yeah, I remember once judging someone based on their clothing style.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were really shallow and materialistic.
Okay.
But as I got to know them, I realized they were incredibly kind and compassionate.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and I felt terrible for misjudging them based on those superficial cues.
Right. It's a good reminder that appearances can be deceiving.
Absolutely.
We should really look beyond those surface level things.
So the next question is kind of a natural follow-up.
Okay.
It asks, how can we become more aware of our own perceptual biases? I mean, we know we have them,
We do.
but how do we spot them in ourselves?
I think awareness is the first step.
Okay.
Just acknowledging that we all have biases.
Even if we don't want to admit it,
Right.
but once we accept that our perceptions aren't always objective,
Yeah.
we can start to pay attention to our thought patterns,
Okay.
identify the biases that might be influencing our judgments.
So like shining a light on those blind spots in our thinking.
Exactly. A great way to put it.
Right.
We need to question our assumptions.
Okay.
Consider alternative perspectives.
Right.
Be open to changing our minds when presented with new information.
But that's easier said than done.
It is, yeah.
Right. I mean, these biases are so ingrained.
Yeah, they're deep.
It can be tough to catch them.
It takes practice
Yeah.
and conscious effort.
What's a good strategy? I mean, do you have one?
Yeah, so one helpful strategy is to pause before making a judgment
Okay.
and ask yourself, what evidence do I have to support this?
Right.
Am I letting my biases cloud my judgment?
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a good way to check yourself.
Yeah, it's like that mental pause button
Totally.
before you react. Exactly. Slow down.
So the next question encourages us to think back to a time when the primacy effect influenced our perception of someone.
All right.
Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, I definitely have.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, I remember one time I met someone at a networking event,
Okay.
and initially they seemed kind of aloof and uninterested
Okay.
during our conversation.
Huh.
So I kind of formed this negative impression of them.
Okay.
Thought they were a bit arrogant. But as I got to know them better over time, I realized that their initial demeanor was more due to shyness
Wow.
than arrogance.
Interesting how that works.
Yeah, it really is.
Those first impressions.
So powerful.
So powerful.
But they don't always tell the whole story.
So we got to be willing to give people a chance to
Yeah,
reveal their
yeah.
true selves.
Exactly. Give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. The final question on this slide focuses on attribution theory.
Okay.
It asks, how can understanding attribution theory help us improve our communication?
Good question.
I remember you explained this theory earlier.
I did.
But I'm curious to hear more about how it can actually help us communicate more effectively.
Well, it's all about how we explain the causes of behavior.
Right.
And I think By understanding this process, we can become more mindful of our judgments, more empathetic in our communication.
Okay.
So first of all, it can help us avoid making assumptions about people's intentions.
I too.
Instead of jumping to conclusions about why someone acted a certain way,
Yeah.
we can pause, consider different possible explanations, ask clarifying questions.
Become a communication detective.
Yes,
Gather those clues before you make a judgment.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and it can also help us communicate our own perspectives more effectively, right?
Absolutely.
If we're explaining our reasoning
Yes,
and acknowledging those situational factors,
Right.
it helps people understand our actions.
totally. It avoids misinterpretations.
Right, it's about being transparent.
It is.
Right,
Yeah.
about our thought process.
And inviting people into our world.
And then understanding attribution theory can help us respond more constructively to feedback and criticism,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Playtime.
Instead of getting all defensive,
Yeah.
taking things personally,
Right.
we can try to understand the other person's perspective
Exactly.
and why they said what they said,
It's a really valuable skill to have.
especially in relationships.
Totally.
Right,
Yeah.
because you can turn potentially hurtful moments
Yes.
into opportunities for growth
Exactly.
and understanding.
It's about connection, not judgment.
This whole discussion about social perception has been so enlightening.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much is going on beneath the surface.
Right. We're not even aware of it half the time.
And it highlights the importance of being mindful of our perceptions,
Absolutely.
challenging those assumptions,
Yes.
striving for more accuracy
And fairness.
and fairness in our judgments.
couldn't have said it better myself.
It's like we're upgrading our social perception software.
I love that.
We're more sophisticated in how we view the world around us.
Yeah. It's an ongoing process
It is.
of learning and self-reflection.
Now, there was one more slide in the personal relationships and attraction presentation
Okay.
that we haven't discussed yet.
Oh.
It was titled, Let's Discuss Personal Relationships.
Oh, yeah.
And it seemed to focus on those practical takeaways that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
So I think it's a good place to transition
Okay.
to our next section.
Sounds good to me.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into relationships, attraction, and perceptions.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've explored so much,
So much.
from those different types of relationships to those sneaky perceptual biases
Right.
to those hidden attachment patterns.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
what are some of your reflections on what we've uncovered?
What stands out to you?
Well, one thing that really struck me is how much of our social interaction happens beneath the surface.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Like we're not even aware of it.
Right. All those biases, those attachment patterns.
Those unspoken expectations,
Exactly.
they're shaping our perception
And our behaviors.
without us even realizing it.
It's like we're operating on autopilot.
Yeah.
Just going through the motions.
But this deep dive,
Yeah.
it's really highlighted how important it is to bring those unconscious processes
Yes.
into conscious awareness.
Absolutely.
Like we've been given a new lens
Right.
to view our relationships through
A new perspective.
that allows us to see those hidden dynamics at play.
And with that awareness comes opportunity
Yes.
to grow and change.
To challenge those biases.
Yes, those limiting beliefs.
Those unproductive patterns.
It's about becoming more conscious.
Yes.
More intentional.
Yeah, and creating those more fulfilling connections.
Exactly.
And another key takeaway for me is the power of communication.
Oh, absolutely.
I know we've talked about it a lot,
It's so important.
but it's worth emphasizing
It is.
again and again.
It's the foundation.
Effective communication.
Yes.
It's the bedrock of any healthy relationship.
For sure. Being able to express your thoughts and feelings clearly,
Uh-huh.
respectfully,
Listening to your partner.
attentively
The guest.
to navigate those disagreements.
Yeah, it's like learning to speak each other's love languages.
Ooh, I like that.
Understanding those nuances.
Yeah, those subtle cues.
And it takes practice.
It does.
And a willingness to keep learning.
To grow together.
Yeah. But those rewards, that deeper connection, that intimacy.
That's what makes it all worthwhile.
Absolutely.
We also have to remember that relationships are constantly evolving.
They are.
What works in one season of life might not work in another.
Right. It's all about being adaptable,
Yeah.
flexible.
Being willing to adjust our expectations.
Yeah, and our communication styles.
As we grow and change together, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to relationships.
Right. Every couple is unique.
Their
Our own dynamic.
their own challenges. It's about finding what works for you
Yes.
and your partner.
Absolutely.
Being willing to experiment, learn, and grow.
So, as we bring this deep dive to a close,
Okay.
Any final words of wisdom?
What message do you want to leave our listeners with?
I want them to remember that relationships are complex.
They are.
They can be messy,
And challenging.
but they're also the source of our greatest joy
Absolutely.
and our most profound learning experiences.
And we can learn so much about ourselves through our relationships.
We can.
Yeah, for sure.
It's all about approaching them with kindness,
Kindness and compassion.
an open heart
Yes.
to create those more fulfilling
And harmonious.
that enrich our lives and the lives of those around us.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure diving deep with you today. The pleasure was all mine.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to approach your relationships with a renewed sense of awareness.
Yes, with compassion.
And a commitment to growth.
Remember those connections? They're an ongoing adventure.
Embrace the complexities.
Yeah, keep learning.
Keep communicating.
Keep those hearts open.
Until next time, happy connecting.